Hey, this is Pastor Curry, pastor of the East Zion Fair Baptist Church, Wilmington's most exciting church, the church that love ya, and anything you can do about it. Today we're Coffee with Curry. We're going to continue our month. This month have so many different titles and labels in it, but we want to really focus today on violence. And today we are privileged, we're honored to have Dr. Hines, who's going to be with us today, and we're going to deal with it from the biblical perspective. And we're going to talk about some of the violence that women face, some of the violence that men face, and how God is not pleased. God wants us to love each other. Ephesians 5 talks about us being imitators of God. So we hope and trust that today's show will be a blessing to you. Why don't you call somebody real quickly? Tell them Coffee with Curry is on, and let's get after it.
Good morning, Delaware and surrounding areas. You are now tuned in to this week's Coffee with Curry. Join us every Sunday at 11 a.m. with new guests every week. So grab your cup of coffee and join us on Coffee with Curry.
And we're back. Well, as I promised you, we have Dr. Hines. And Dr. Hines, before we get started, I want to say thank you so very much
You're
for taking
welcome.
time out of your busy schedule from the Wilmington University and do what you
Oh,
do.
here we
Oh,
go.
Lord, I hope nobody is watching and saying this is where she was. But it's always a joy to have you on the Coffee with Curry. And for those of you who have said to me that you enjoy when she comes on, I'm going to put her on as much as possible because I do love her wisdom and love what she brings to the table. Today, we're going to do a little bit of talking about violence. We want to stay in the same zone, but we want to put a biblical perspective on it so that
Okay.
people understand where God is as it relates to violence. And as I was looking it up, I found that violence is considered an offense against God
Okay.
because God is a God of love. You talked about your Romans text a little bit. You don't mind, sharing that?
No, I don't mind. It actually says, let love be without hypocrisy,
Yeah.
abhor that which is evil,
Uh,
and cling to that which is good.
amen.
So literally, walk in love,
Yeah.
or allow your life
Yeah.
to be transformed by the love of God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
So,
and I think that's what helps. So much violence is going on in our
yeah.
society,
Yeah.
and even in the church. But I just want to get your feelings on the violence, that whether it be domestic violence, sexual violence, whatever violence, as it relates to even against women.
Okay. Well, I think when we talk about violence, sometimes violence, we attribute it to all kinds of conditions. Well, this person had a bad childhood,
Mm,
or this person went through so and so and so, and this person, and so we validate their actions based on what happened in their childhood.
mm,
Not saying that what happened in their childhood is not a precursor or a situation that has traumatized them,
mm-hmm.
but we choose to traumatize other people.
Okay.
And so when you perpetuate violence against women
Mm-hmm.
or against men or against children,
Mm-hmm.
you're in essence giving yourself the green light to do to somebody else what somebody did to you.
Right.
Instead of cutting that off and saying, my parents did it to me, I'm not going to do it to my children.
Okay.
Or, whoever did it to you, and I'm not going to do it to my children. And I think a lot of it, though, has to do with the fact that we're so self centered.
Okay. Good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've gotten into the place in society where we're so self-centered. Think about well, I'm probably old, I'm older than you. So let me talk about me. So when I was growing up,
Mhm.
right, if you did something wrong in your neighborhood,
Mhm.
anybody in your neighborhood could correct you.
Absolutely.
Anybody in your neighborhood could take you to task for being wrong or for
Mhm.
doing the wrong thing. And anybody in school could do that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. Now, I remember I went to Catholic school. You get hit with a ruler across your. No, so
Yeah.
we won't go
That's
there.
why I got kicked out.
Oh yeah.
Go
Okay.
ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. But anybody could stop you.
Right. Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, but we're in a situation where if you stop someone's child
Mhm.
from perpetuating or an act of violence or bullying against another child, parents don't take it as you're trying to help my child grow
Mhm.
and you're trying to maintain safety for your child as well as the child that's being attacked. They take it personal,
Yeah.
and it becomes an affront for them. And so then they become defensive, and they react to that instead of reacting to the act your child did.
Right.
The act is incorrect. That doesn't mean Johnny is bad or Sue is bad, but the act, that thing that you did, is incorrect. But that's not what we do anymore.
Yeah.
We cuss the teachers out if they talk to our children, even if they don't do anything nasty to them. We want to cuss them out. We want to cuss our neighbor out. Even church, let's be real.
Oh, yeah.
Even in church, if you talk to somebody's child, they get offended and they get upset. So it's like we are no longer in a village, and we're no longer relationship tied. So, because if you look at most of Paul's story, when you listen to Paul and you read the books that, the epistles that he wrote, he's all about relationship.
Yes.
He's all about maintaining that relationship and having the right kind of relationship. And I think we've lost that in church.
Yeah. Do you think that one of the results of having or living in a godless society is that we have people who don't really have the attributes of a God,
Okay.
to be able to even see their wrong in that?
Okay, I agree with that. Well, I agree in part because I know people who are atheists, and I know people who are agnostics,
Okay.
who do better than people that I know that are Christians
Or church people.
that are church people.
Yeah. Okay.
So let me say church people.
Yes.
Or religious people.
Okay.
Let's do that even better.
Yes. Yes.
Than religious people.
Uh-huh.
Who will go out of their way for you, who will do things for you. I mean, I think one of the groups that we tar with the wrong let me say the wrong feather is the LGBTQ community. They are some of the nicest people. They will go out of their way for you. I'm not telling you that I agree
I understand.
with what's going on, but I'm telling you, as people, they're some of the nicest people. They will go out of their way for you. They're whatever. So we can't always attribute it to the lack of God,
Okay.
or the lack of a belief in God. I think it comes down to how we were raised by our family.
Yeah. So, well, and a lot of times, like you were speaking of your time where everyone could correct.
Yeah.
That was a part of the community.
Yeah.
That was a part of what they believe is
Yeah.
shared faith almost.
Yeah.
And that's why I really kind of brought up, because we live in such a godless society.
Yeah.
Where we're more focused on ourselves. You opened up by talking
Yeah.
about that. We're so self-centered.
Yes.
Where we don't have space for other people.
No, we
in
don't.
other situations.
Yeah.
And I think that when you start dealing with violence, I told you before the show that we were going to we're going to make sure we covered 3 areas, and
Yeah.
one was the physical violence that happened, and I wanted to use a woman in the Bible
Okay.
who we could really, hone in on to say, yes, that was violence, and why do we think it was violence? Okay.
Okay.
And the first person I want to do is a woman who was caught in the very act.
Of adultery.
Now, we saw the physical violence. These men, they were trying to trap Jesus.
Yes.
But they threw her
On the
to the ground,
Yeah.
because she was worth nothing.
And they wanted to stone her.
Yeah.
Let's get that part right.
Yeah.
Because that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
They were going to stone her.
Yeah.
So my question then is, where's that man?
Right.
Okay. So where's that man?
That's double standards,
Yeah,
hypocrisy,
It's
all that
all
stuff.
of that.
Yeah.
But if you look at some of the stories in the Bible, there's a lot of violence against women. Women were either objectified.
Mm-hmm.
Hester, if you
Yes.
look at the story of Esther, we objectify her. We may say all the stuff that we want to say, and she says, "Yeah, if I perish." Yes, she did. But think about how it's all about how much the beauty treatment that she had to go through. So we become objectified, or we become vilified. Jezebel,
Yeah.
Miriam, when she challenged Moses about what he was doing. So we in literature we call it flat characters.
Okay.
We make women flat characters. They're two-dimensional. They don't seem to have any emotions, and they're either all good or they're all bad. Or we justify them as being good. For example, you look at Sarah and Hagar.
Okay.
Sarah was wrong. I don't care how many ways you talk that story. She was wrong. She took that Egyptian woman from her culture, and she decided to give her to her husband. So she has a child. The child is I guess bullying, if you want to use that terminology, Isaac. The mother wasn't.
Right.
But she doesn't retaliate against the child. She retaliates against the woman.
Mm-hmm.
And why does she do that? And so when you look at when the Deuteronomistic writers write, they make Sarah this good person
Right.
because she had Isaac.
Isaac. Right.
And they made Agar this bad person because she had Ishmael, or as Paul says in Galatians, one is the son of promise
Right.
and one's not.
Right.
So does that make them less? No. And I think that's what the writers do. But I think you come back to, and I've had this conversation with a friend of mine, it's about interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the Bible is the infallible written word of God. Yet it is. Yes, it is. But men,
Mm-hmm.
nothing against men, but men interpret the Bible.
Right.
And they interpret it to make themselves look good and women look bad.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that just for those who are watching us, and it's not that we are against the Bible because we
No.
both are ministers
No.
of the gospel.
No.
But I want to make sure you understand. I personally, even while I was working on my doctoral degree at United, I wrote against a lot of the King James writing.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Because I felt that he was very sexist.
He was.
And he was deliberate.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are some who push back and share that you can't change how God did things.
Okay.
And because of the hierarchy, God, they put him, and I'm not prescribing to this theology, but they put God as a male, and some try to say he may not have been a male, he may be a female. So it becomes, how do you deal with the theological part of it and how people have written it? I disagree with King James in a lot of areas.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons why I really didn't spend a lot of time reading it.
Okay.
I have other, one, I learned Greek and I learned some Hebrew so that I can be able to interpret for myself.
Okay.
But I agree with you. That's really where I was going at. I agree with you that a lot of things were written so that the women couldn't be nullified. Is that the right language?
Nullified,
Nullified, brother.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we got to do is we have to be careful.
Exactly.
Because when you talked about Paul, he preaches a lot about the heart of Jesus, and that's about loving, and it's about treating people as people. Not I'm bigger, I'm better, so I can bully you, I can beat you,
exactly,
I can do violence upon you. And I think that's what often happens. When I brought up about the woman at the well, they wanted to stone her.
You mean the woman?
I mean the woman caught in adultery.
Sorry,
because I'm going to talk about the woman at the well in a minute.
Yeah.
But the woman who was caught in the quote unquote act,
in the act of adultery,
and did not bring the male. That was bullying.
Yes.
And which is totally inappropriate.
Exactly.
They wanted to stone her.
Yes.
Physically, they wanted to just destroy her.
Yes.
And I think that we have to be careful that we are not repeating that same behavior.
Yes, exactly.
Shakespeare said he was stealing my purse, steal the trash, but he was still robs me of my good name,
Yeah.
robs me of my endearity, leaves me poor indeed. So what happens is sometimes people think,
I love Shakespeare. I can't believe you just quoted Shakespeare. I'm gonna stop.
I'm a universal scholar. I'm not just in the pulpit. But I think I think sometimes people think, well, I'm not really hurting the person because I'm just using verbal, but verbal hurts just as much as physical.
Exactly, even probably more than a physical hurt.
Okay.
Because you can hit somebody, right, and that'll heal.
Right.
But you say some things to people, whether you do it in writing, whether you do it in verbal, and that stays in people.
Yes.
And so I'm in a group currently right now. It's all women, and it's we are working through. It's called the Body Mind Connection, or dealing with with life and how life affects us as women. And one of the things that we have discussed, or we are continuing to discuss, in addition to trauma, is the fact that 80% of what happens to your body goes to your brain, but only 20% of what happens in your brain flows to your body through the vagus nerve, right? And so the thing then becomes, when you say something to somebody that impacts them, their emotions, their feeling, it doesn't go anywhere. And so sometimes verbal abuse to me is worse than physical abuse.
Oh yeah.
Okay, because you can hit me, and I'm okay. I'll hurt for a while. I may get to put a Band-Aid on it, but the hurt will go away.
Right, right.
But when you say something to me that's very negative, very, very off-putting, that doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
It gets into my psyche.
Yeah.
And every time you talk to me, That's what I'm reliving. I'm not reliving what you're saying to me. I'm reliving what you said to me.
Right. See, what happens is there's a sociological term called self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
And what happens, what ends up happening is you start internalizing
Rising. Yes.
what was said to you, and sometimes you even act out that behavior.
Exactly.
So that's why we have to be careful what we
Yeah.
say to each
Yeah.
other and how we respond to each other.
Yes.
And we're going to take a quick commercial break.
Yeah.
But we went right into the verbal.
Yeah.
But you also had a great introduction of sharing how women are mistreated.
Yes.
On the physical. But I want to talk about, Elijah and Jezebel, how she verbally caused him to almost lose his mind. We want to talk about the power of even verbal abuse. We're going to be right back.
There was a woman in the crowd, no one knew her name. She struggled with issues in life that were running through her veins. She was afraid to go to church, 'cause folks wouldn't understand. They said she had no hope. Then she saw a man, and she felt the pull deep in her spirit. Suddenly she knew that if she touched the hem of his garment, that's all she had to do.
I would not be here if it was not for God. I cannot do this by myself.
Domestic violence is not the will of God. It is not a part of the life that He created you for. God had given me a platform every week to address the matter.
My greatest challenge is getting them to listen, to understand that this is a vital issue. This is not a woman's issue. This is not a man's issue. This is a societal issue. It's a human issue. Getting them to see how viable this subject is and how our silence only perpetuates it.
Look in the mirror and ask yourself the question, what am I here to do? Who am I here to serve? Who am I here to help? It's one thing for a man to be drowning and for me to be hollering out instructions on how to swim from the banks. It's another thing to put my life in jeopardy and to get in that water and start swimming toward him.
I was involved in domestic violence. I needed to have one of these institutions speak up for me, protect me, be there for me, believe me. It did not happen in the police department, and it did not happen in the church.
In our community, in the rural community, over 75% of the murders were domestic violence related.
This is something that is breaking down church families as well as communities. As the church, we have a responsibility as a spiritual trauma center to bring healing and different resources so we can help African American families that surround this particular community and other communities be healthy through faith-based principle application.
When I wake up and see that my son does not have to wake up to what I had to wake up to, if God can use me to cause that to happen, that's the hope that I have.
I was angry with the church people, but I wasn't angry with God, but it took a lot for me to forgive them. So I said, Lord, if you help me get out of this, I don't care if I have a penny. If you help me get out of this, Lord, I would never, ever go back to that situation again.
Thankfully, you left and didn't go back, and I salute you for doing that.
Doing a support group, looking at these young ladies that are survivors, that's why I kept saying, it's powerful. You're a powerful individual because it takes courage to still be here, to say, I'm not going to give you that right, and I'm not going to rob the world of knowing who I am.
Saving a man saves a family, which saves a neighborhood, and it spills over from there.
For the battles you fought for me, all the victories won. I say thank you.
And we're back. Well, Dr. Hans, this is good. We led somewhat into the verbal.
Yeah.
The verbal, as you have already indicated yourself, is very, very, very powerful.
Yes.
Okay. It leaves you feeling a certain way.
Exactly.
And it can leave it for an extended amount of time.
Exactly.
And I then transferred over to sharing. Okay, well, there was a man.
Okay.
Who called fire out of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
There was a man who really understood, and I'm showing you the power of how something negative said to you can make you drop to your knees.
Mm-hmm.
And when Jezebel said, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to get you, I can't wait. This man, Elijah, he went and hid.
Yes, he did.
And asked God to kill him.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
That speaks to the power of verbal abuse.
Yes, it does.
All right, let's hear your spin on your love of Jezebel.
So it's not that I love
I
her.
understand.
It's the issue of that you have to see her for who she was.
Okay.
That was a powerful woman.
She was.
That was a woman that was cunning.
Mm-hmm.
She was articulate.
And can I say this? Because we was in Bible study and
Yeah.
you was not there last week.
I
That was
was
a
in
word.
class.
That was a word. Amen. That's right. There was a word that that was the word I used to share. We often look at the word cunning as being negative.
Exactly.
That means she was skillful, crafty,
Exactly.
able to get done what needs to be done.
Yes.
So I wanted to stop you there only because sometimes people are like, well, that's negative. No, it's not.
It's how you're using
How you
that.
right?
yeah.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So when I think of her, yes, I think about what she did to Elijah. But here's what I really think about her is when I think about how she convinced Ahab
Okay.
to allow her to get him that vineyard that he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at what she did. So she said to him, "I'll get you that vineyard. Don't worry about it."
Mm-hmm.
And you knew she had to have read the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
the Hebrew Bible. Let's get it right.
Yeah.
And she had to have known the word of God, and she had to know what the word said. Or what did she do? She went and got witnesses
Mm-hmm.
to the fact that this man, talked against the priest and talked against her husband, which means she had to know what the law said. She had to have read it, studied it for her to put her plan in fruition.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, that's a cunning woman. That's a skillful woman.
Mm-hmm.
That's a woman who's powerful.
Yes.
Now, was she wrong? Yeah.
Mhm.
In a lot of ways, she was wrong.
Mhm.
But as a man, Ahab, to me, he has the greater sin to me because he was the man of God.
Mm-hmm.
He was the king. And let's go back to the Bible. He's not only functioning as king, he's functioning in the role as king and priest.
Right. Okay.
So if he's functioning as a king and priest, that means you know the law.
Right.
So you know what can and cannot be done. So when you were teaching it or making sure your wife knew it, why did you not have parameters set up or ways set up so she could not transgress? And when she transgressed, why didn't you bring her back in and stop her?
Because she was cunning.
Or he was just a dumb man. How about
Okay.
that?
Okay. Well. Hey, we have a whole lot of that going on around. And that's a pill that you got to take. Though. But I'm gonna go back to, and I'm glad you're paying attention. We purposefully, we're trying to share sometimes even the justification that men and women use for doing what they do.
Yeah.
But the issue is the violence, and now we're dealing with the verbal part of it.
Exactly.
When she threatened Elijah,
Yeah,
she was wrong.
she was.
But I wanted you to see how that one threat
Yeah.
caused him to almost lose his mind. Now, she was crafty.
Yes.
She was a smart woman. And
Yeah.
listen, I stand with the women
Yeah.
who celebrate not the dirty deeds
No,
he does,
not what she does.
but her ability
But
to,
her
to, to,
ability.
to move in
Exactly.
a society that
Exactly.
was against women.
Exactly. And that she was not a part of.
Right.
She was
right.
not raised as
Yeah.
a Jew.
Yeah, right. That's true too. I didn't even think about that. but
She
that-
was
that's
not raised
absolutely.
as a Jew. So for her to do the things that woman did, she had to learn the information,
Mhm.
and then she had to be able to use it in such a way. And yes, she's wrong. The violence she perpetrated against him, as well as against the man that owned the vineyard
Right.
that her husband wanted.
Right.
That's all wrong. And not even then. If you go through the book of Kings, she did a whole bunch of stuff
Yeah.
that she shouldn't have done.
Right.
And so I think the idea is if you're in a position of power,
Mhm.
if you're in a position of or a place of authority, you have to be careful of how you talk to people.
And that's the piece I wanted to make sure we leave on that area. That when you are in, whether you be a woman or a male,
Exactly.
I wanted to make sure we had a male example that you women,
Yeah.
you can do this to men too.
Yeah, yeah.
Although you have been victimized so much.
Exactly.
You can get in a place of power, and I watch that even in some of the politics that goes on in the
Yeah.
city and stuff. Where
Yeah.
people get into a position where,
Yeah.
oh, I'm a woman, I can't be, I'm not, I couldn't have abused this person, or my verbal doesn't harm to the
Yeah.
level that I'm at.
Yeah.
All violence is against who God is and what God would desire for us.
Yeah, and then when we say violence, though, Pastor, we're not just talking about a hitting or a verbal. When you take advantage of somebody, that's
Yes.
violence against
Absolutely.
those people.
Absolutely.
So if you're a politician and you're building your own kingdom, your own fiefdom, and you're going and you're not doing what's best for the people,
Yeah.
that's violence
Yes.
against people.
That's right. That's right.
You know, because sometimes we want to take it to mean you're hitting somebody
Right.
or you're shooting somebody,
Yeah.
which is violence. Yes, but if you're taking over
Mhm.
and you are sabotaging who I am,
Yeah.
you're making me less than I am, that's violence against my person.
Yes, yes. And thank you, because what you just did was you helped me, because even with those who are in leadership position, we have a duty
Yes,
to love people.
exactly.
We have a duty. And what end up happening all too often is that we forget
Mhm.
what we're supposed to do when we get in place of power.
Exactly.
And we become lord over people.
Exactly.
And I love when you said that's you're committing acts of violence
Yes.
when you're taking over a person's person, a
Exactly.
person's being.
Exactly.
So I think that was so earth awakening for me just now.
Yeah.
'Cause when you said it, I was like, you know what? I never thought of it that way.
Because that's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what we do. And so we do it in church.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
We do it in church to each other. So when you're conniving or when you're making snide remarks or you're talking, or when somebody commits a sin or what you think is a sin, let me get that part straight,
Mhm.
and you now visit violence on them. Why? Because you want to justify the fact that, oh, they're going to hell.
Yeah, that was Sunday sermon.
I know. You're going to go to hell.
Yeah.
You're going to go to hell. And that you want to put people in hell,
Yeah.
and nobody put you in hell when you were acting a fool and doing all the
And
crazy
then
stuff
most of
you
the
were
time you
doing.
still are if you're thinking like you're thinking
Yeah.
thinking like that, you
But
still
you
are
are.
where you
Yeah.
used to be.
Yeah.
But and it was funny that because Sunday's message was, as we're doing this whole
Yeah.
Better Me series,
Yeah.
we tried our best to talk about, let's not blow this chance.
That's correct.
God has given us and one of the points was, we got to learn to help each other.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
when you don't help each other, what
Exactly.
happens is you're harming each other.
Exactly.
And you just really tied together for me, because it's something that I'm great work on.
Yeah.
Where we got to make sure that we're not committing acts of violence, whether it be verbal or whatever,
Exactly.
against each other.
Exactly.
By how we treat each other.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
what, you the chairman of the board or you the pastor?
Exactly.
You
That's
don't
not
have
who you are.
you don't have the right, the authority to
Exactly.
take over somebody's
Exactly.
being.
Yeah. And so then if you are the person that's being subjected to that, you also don't have the right now to retaliate
Right.
or to turn around and do what the person did to you.
Right.
That's not your job. That's not your role.
Right.
Your role is to let God be God.
Yeah.
And you pray.
Yeah.
And I think as church people, that's the most difficult thing.
Mhm.
So let me talk about me. That's been one of the most difficult things for me. It's because sometimes I want to react
Mhm.
and I want to say what I want to say.
Right.
And when the Lord says you can't say anything,
Oh.
then my attitude becomes, but they wrong.
Mhm.
But God never says to me, well, yeah, they wrong. He always says to me, that's not your job.
Right. That's right. Right. Right.
And he always tells me that. I mean, and I've been in many situations with not talking about you specifically, where I've been in a bishop's church and I've been in churches where things have been said across the pulpit, and I'm ready to react and get up and get you told. And the Lord will say, that is not your job. That's not your role. And we have to be careful as children of God. We can't, when people do things to us, when you react to them and you treat them wrong and you're just being just as violent as they were to you.
Yeah, I'd say that again, because I think that's really key.
No.
Not that you got to be somebody's floor mat.
No.
But you got to understand, in the Christian walk, there's a God element.
Exactly.
There's a God
There's
element.
always a God element, and you've got to allow God to be God.
Yeah.
You've got to allow God to work
Mhm.
in God's time. And there's a saying, back to literature, it talks about the windmills of the God grind, but they grind slowly, but they grind fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you got to wait for that windmill to grind.
Yeah.
And you've got to wait for God to be God.
Mhm.
Because the question becomes, like you talked about Jonah and Nineveh, do you want God to cast you away?
Wow.
So then why should you expect him to cast somebody away?
Mhm.
So they've hurt you. So they've said the wrong thing. So they've done the wrong thing. Are you right in expecting God to cut them down? Or should you expect God to extend grace just the way he extends it to you?
Yeah. And the end part of the message on Sunday, we tried our best to talk about the God being sovereign.
Exactly.
He doesn't respond the way we always want him to.
No.
And while his whole goal is that all come unto repentance.
Exactly.
That's his goal.
That's
Not
it.
that everybody go to hell, but that everybody come to
Exactly.
repentance. So giving people the opportunity.
Yeah.
So how I talk to you verbally,
Yes.
it should reflect love.
Exactly.
Love. I want you. I want
Exactly.
you better. I want you whole. I
Exactly.
want you.
Exactly.
And that becomes important.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are watching today, and you're saying, well, I heard, the church and church people.
Yeah.
Because we're Christians.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes some of the most damage that is done right in the confines of church walls.
Yeah.
There are people who will never go back to church because of how they were treated.
Exactly.
And we have to learn how to love people. There was an old cussing phrase. They said, love the hell out. I mean,
Gotta
you
love the
gotta
hell
love the hell out of people. But that makes sense.
Yeah.
You got to love people until they come out of what they're stuck in.
Exactly. Exactly. And how can I say, so now I'm going into my message for my class. So how can I say that I've been transformed
Okay.
by the love of God, but I don't allow the love of God to transform you?
See?
How can I
That's
do
called
that?
hypocrisy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what Paul says. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
that's
got to
called
abhor that which is, and that's what we are. We become hypocrites in church because we want you to extend us grace. We want you to give us a chance. But we don't want to do that for other people.
People who have really truly been delivered, people who have really truly been touched by the love of God, want others to have that.
Exactly.
I often say people who do not extend love is because they've never received love or accepted love, because that's what is going on. And if a person have been truly delivered, they know the power of deliverance.
Exactly.
So I hear you and I agree, and I'm hoping that as you are listening to us today, and we're going to go to a commercial break again, but as you're listening to us today, you got to recognize that there's a physical piece to violence. And there's a verbal piece. And what you say out of your mouth, listen to what the word of God says in the book of Proverbs, is that the power of life and death is in your tongue. What you say matters.
Exactly.
You should fill your mouth with words of affirmation. Learn to love people who you don't even like. Now I'm one of those preachers who believe in being real. There are people who I call them fruit testers. Okay, they are fruit testers. And what does that mean? That means they test my fruit. Do I really have love? Do I really have patience? Am I really kind? And sometimes I fall short, but listen, it doesn't mean that I don't stop practicing and pushing myself to do better. Verbal abuse is wrong. When we're talking about assault and violence, we want to make sure that in the Bible it's very clear God is against it. God is against it. It's one more area, culture. And when we come back, we're going to talk about culture, and that's when we're going to talk about the woman at the well, because she had 5 husbands, and the one she was living with wasn't hers. But I'm going to talk about the cultural aspect of that, because that abuse was there. She had no rights. But we're going to come right back. We'll be right back.
Then there's a verbal rage. I want to talk about verbal rage. Verbal rage isn't necessarily just cursing, and it's not necessarily screaming. It's the things that you know will hurt me, and you say them to hurt me. Stripping me of my dignity, stripping me of my pride, going where you're not supposed to go, stripping the person of self-respect. Verbal rage. In a moment of transparency, I open up and expose my vulnerability, and in a moment of anger, you use what I exposed against me. Oh, it's quiet. You belittle the one God called you to build up. Even if you have no spouse, this will help you. This will help you with your kids, it'll help you with your grandkids, it'll help you with your neighbors, and it may help you with what went wrong. Because we all have our weapons. Silence is as much a weapon as being loud is. Verbal abuse. I don't have to curse you to tell you you're fat and you're ugly and you always have been ugly and you're just a big hat wearing ugly. You think those words don't have power? It's funny when I say it in a joking sense, but when it comes from the mouth of somebody I have given my all to, you think those words don't have power? You think those words won't stay longer than you? Outlive you, outlast you? Those words will be there forever. Words have power. When you say certain things to children, they have power. You're dumb, you're just like your father. Those words have power. Those words grow up and manifest in behavior. And the crazy thing to me, having pastored for years, I've gotten to watch several generations grow up. I've seen people do it to their kids and then come in my office crying, talking about, I don't know what's wrong with this girl. Yes, you do. You're getting the fruit of your lips. She is manifesting what you said.
And we're back. Great show thus far. We're getting the opportunity to understand the verbal and the physical. Now we're going to move into the culture. And while we were on break, you brought up Tamar, and I wanted to let's show them how the culture is even sometimes designed to be violent.
Exactly.
And when you don't follow it, and what happens. So let's just talk a little bit about them first.
Yeah, and because when we talk about Tamar, if you remember the story, she was married to Judah's son.
Yes.
And so when he died because he violated the rules of God, according to Jewish law, the next son in line should have been her husband. Well, the next son said, "Ain't happening, bro. No, I'm not doing that." And so he loses out. So then there's one son left, the 10-year-old, but he was old enough. Judah should have given that son to her, and he did not. So then he has violated her rights as a woman, has her place in society. He's negated that. Okay, so what does she do? She dresses herself up. I mean, no offense, man, but when God created us, I mean, he did the, I'm just going to say that. When he created us, he did a good thing. And so she dressed up because she's smart. And she goes to the around into the community where she knows he's going to come. And he approaches her and she says, "Okay, sure, you want to have sex? But I need something from you." So he gives her his signet ring. If we want to, that's not what we would call it now, but that's what we're going to say. He gives her the ring. He gives us the thing that proves who he is as the man. And so he gives it to her. So she goes in, he sleeps with her, she gets pregnant with twins. And when they come to tell him, what's his answer? Let's stone her, because she done committed adultery. So they bring her to stone her. And so when she brings her, he starts to interrogate her. She says, "Well, yeah, and I have proof of." He said, "Well, show me the proof of whoever this man is." So when she hands it to him, he's sitting there with, his mouth probably dropped, his tongue is probably hanging out, and he's going, "Oh my God," because he was wrong.
Right, because he's the one that committed that.
He's the one, actually.
Yes.
Actually, is the one that committed the issue.
Now, this is one of the things I want to make sure for those who are watching. During that culture, women were really defined by their men.
Yes, they were.
If a woman did not have a husband, she had no value.
None.
So that's why the law was written that when the husband died, the different people who were getting to keep the value there.
To keep the
Not
value.
that they had that much value, but just to make sure there was some say. And
Redeemer, the Redeemer.
Yes. So as we looked at even that story, look at the violence they were going to do to this woman.
Exactly.
And listen, it would have been legal. That's what I want to make sure you understand.
Yeah.
Even though he done broke every rule. Because he was supposed to do it. And first of all, he ain't no business sleeping with no harlot. Okay, number one.
I was waiting for you to go. I was waiting for you to go there.
She certainly dressed herself up, but he had no business.
Exactly.
Regardless of what she did.
Exactly.
But yet, when it came time to find out that she was pregnant, back out of character, he wants her stoned to death.
He wants her stoned to death.
It's just horrible.
Exactly.
Power will pollute. You have to make sure you keep yourself strong in God.
Yeah, power corrupts.
Yeah, well, it
and
does.
Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely.
Now, it also leads me to the woman
at the well.
At the well.
Yes.
Because she too is kind of feeling interesting. She's a Samaritan. That's already making her less than.
Exactly.
5 husbands.
Exactly.
Now, what you don't understand is the woman doesn't get a chance to say who's her husband.
There you go.
What happens is that the man says, "I want her."
There you go.
And then he also says, "I don't want her any longer."
There you go.
So she must have been good looking though, because the 5 of them, if 5 of them said, "I want her," after she'd have been around. And listen, but even the one that she was currently with
was not her.
I feel was abusing her too. Why?
Exactly.
Because he didn't even marry.
He did not. No. Because here's what we do. We want to lay our ideas on the Bible.
Right.
And we want to give what we think is going on. And at the end of the day, women had to do what they could to survive.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So they had no rights.
Mhm.
You know, because you do realize when you go to the Middle East now, my niece and them had to go. One of the things that they're told is that they have to dress a certain way.
Oh yeah.
And they have to put certain things on.
Mhm.
Because if you go there and you single,
Mhm.
they can still just say, "Oh, I want you back." There you go. And that's what they did.
Yeah.
5 men did that to her.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Because she's less than. She's not important.
Mhm.
But I'm going to say this, but black men do that to black women.
Yeah. Well, no, I think men do that to women.
Yeah, but I want to talk about black men.
Yeah.
But black men do that to black women. You know, you want to treat us as less than.
Mhm.
You know, white folk treat you less than, but then instead of you doing the opposite, you turn around and do the same thing to us
Okay.
that's done to you. And so my point to being is, if you're gonna be a man, and if you're gonna be a man of God, and if you're gonna be a man who's gonna be right, then you got to do right.
Yeah, I can hear the brothers saying in the background, Pastor, don't push back a little bit, Pastor. Push
Go ahead, push back.
I'm gonna push back in this. I think black people do it to black people.
Oh, I totally agree with that.
Because there are black women who do the exact same thing.
Exactly, I agree.
And there are black men
I
who
agree.
do it.
I
So black
agree.
people do it out of even some of the culture that we have developed.
Exactly.
But because I know some black men who have done very well by their families, and the women and their wives or whatever just destroyed everything. And then by the same token, I know some men who have destroyed their whole family as well. So I just want to say black people, because I don't want my brothers to be looking at the show like, Pastor, you know, you should have pushed back on that.
But you know, I just said that right.
Yeah.
Okay, because I really don't believe that.
Okay. Oh, no.
But I think it's black. I think it's black spirit.
Yes, we do that to each
I
other.
think we do it. Yes, I think we do it
yes,
to each other.
yes.
We vilify each other. We become objects of violence.
Right.
Women do. You know, especially young black women. You know, because if you look at the numbers, the rise in sexual abuse,
Okay.
and usually sexual abuse against a child or a young girl is usually by somebody they know.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Not by somebody they don't know.
Yes.
It's somebody that it's either somebody the mama know, the daddy knows,
Right.
or somebody related to them.
Right.
And sometimes it's the dad,
Right.
or
Yes.
sometimes it's the mother.
Yes.
Okay, so the thing about it is we perpetuate the violence that was done against us for over this last 400 years. We perpetuate that on our children and on each other.
You know, it's funny, when Ashley was a little bit younger, she's only 12 now,
Mhm.
but I think she was around 9.
Mhm.
My wife began to talk to her about how she's a lady. And nobody should be just have free access to your body.
Exactly.
And she said, well, except you and Daddy, right? She says no person should
No
have
person.
free access to your
Nobody.
body. And it's weird because my daughter can come and invade me. She can come in the bathroom, whatever. But if she's in her bathroom, it's private.
Yes.
And she'll say, Daddy, my privacy. And I think what happens a lot of times is that we don't teach our
Exactly.
young girls, our young brothers,
Yes.
that you have a private life. Your life
Yeah.
is private.
Mhm.
You shouldn't let everybody in your private space.
Exactly.
And when
That's
they
right there.
violate
Your
it,
space.
yeah,
Exactly.
when
Exactly.
they violate it, they need to be told, or some adult needs to be told. My
Exactly.
private space is being
Yeah,
violated.
yeah.
When talking about violence, I'm glad you kind of turned us over to this area,
Yeah.
because even to those young girls, young brothers
Mhm.
who are in homes that
Exactly.
are being sexually abused,
Yes.
because that's the real month that we're in.
That's what we're in. Yeah.
They have to learn to share.
Yes.
And for those parents who do not take true to
Mhm.
your child is
Mhm.
crying because
Mhm.
they're
Mhm.
being
Mhm.
molested and things of that
Mhm.
nature, I think that's a shame.
And it is. And as a survivor
Mhm.
of sexual abuse, that's one of the most difficult things for survivors is to talk about that situation as they get older. You know, to talk about why you're so protective. You know, like my daughter and I used to clash all the time because she never understood that. Don't let no man put you in his lap. Don't sit in nobody.
Absolutely.
Don't sit in no man's lap.
Yeah.
And if somebody says anything to you, then you tell us immediately. Don't try to figure out why they mean it. Don't figure anything out. Just tell us. And so what happens is you become very defensive, and you're trying to not let that happen to your children. What happened to you? But sometimes I think as parents we don't hear our children, and I'll just put it that way. You know, I don't want to get into details, but we don't hear our children, and because we are caught up in, we may be 2-3 jobs, we may be really busy, and we're doing a lot of things, but you got to stop and listen to your children.
Yeah.
You got to allow your kids to say to you, mom or dad or mom, uncle, whatever did this, or my stepfather did this, or my whoever it is did this, and you listen to them, and you give them an opportunity to check it out. Just check it out. And I think, because I think a lot of things in my particular situation, if it hadn't been for my brother, the one that just died, I don't know what would have happened.
Okay.
But he listened to me.
Okay. Okay.
And he reacted to based on what I said.
Okay. Okay.
You know, and so that's the issue, that
God always sends someone.
yes, and you got to listen to your kids.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, the person that did it when they got really ill and was dying wanted me to forgive them.
Okay.
Call me to, and I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm safe today because I wasn't saved then. Because my comment was, they were in the hospital dying. I think they need to talk to God. They don't need to be talking to me.
Okay.
And that's the way I
but that's a hurt piece, and like you said, you wasn't really where you needed to be in the Lord, because we have to forgive. But by the same token, people should not just have the freedom and the right to do what they want to do and think all they got to do is say, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Because that created problems in your life, and not only your life, but the lives of those. And my heart goes out. I love children. I love seniors.
Yeah.
And when you harm either the two of those communities, you create a problem for me. And my favorite line, and you can ask my daughter this, is when I said, keep me out of jail. And just talk to me, keep me informed, because if I find out something, I might find myself in a place where daddy can't help himself.
Yeah. And so that's it. So when we talk about, and I guess because this is an issue that's close to me, and that's when I say, when I talk to you about violence, is we violate, or we put violence on people, children, in multiple ways. We don't listen to them. We don't talk for them. We don't intercede or intervene, or we are not advocates for them. And so we perpetuate those things, and we keep it going on. And whether it's white people, black people, it happens in every community.
Absolutely.
Let me be real. It happens in every community. It happens in all society. You know, and so we have to pay attention, and we pay attention to children that are in church with us, or young people that are in church with us. You know, if they look, be able to talk to them. But if you're judgmental and you want to put everybody in hell, they're not going to talk to you.
Absolutely.
They're not coming to you. They're not going to share with you. They're not going to talk with you. And I think so, as we're talking about abuse, and as we talk about all of that, we've got to always, for the Bible's sake, put the Bible in perspective. Yes, the word is the written, infallible written word of God, but men interpret the Bible. And God's, just because that's their perspective does not mean that that's God's perspective.
Absolutely.
You know, especially when we talk about the sons of Noah, and according to white folk, all about everybody black need to be in hell, and we can be treated any kind of way because of that story. But that's your interpretation. That's not God's intention.
Absolutely.
Can I say that?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's where we are. You know, what does he say? I wished above all that you would be in health, and that you would prosper, even what? As your soul prosper. He said, come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. So he doesn't want to add to us, to our issues and our stresses. He wants us to be better.
Right.
He wants us to grow out of things. He wants us to become better. He wants us to show people the love of God. But how can we show that when we don't even love our own selves?
Absolutely.
And we don't forgive ourselves. And we have to be willing to forgive ourselves of the things that have occurred, things that have happened, and we have got to love ourselves.
Yeah, and you kind of covered the last piece I wanted to cover in this show.
Oh, okay.
And that is and that is seriously about us abusing us.
Exactly.
Ourselves.
Exactly.
And the forgiveness is the key.
Exactly.
To releasing the violence that we do on ourselves. That is the key. When you can forgive yourself for the things that you that has happened in your life or whatever else, or things you've done. That's your way of stopping the violence on your personal life.
Exactly.
The greatest gift that God has given to humanity is each other. We are our greatest gift, and we should love each other. We should care for each other. We should cherish each other. And when we're not doing that, God is not pleased. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Justina. People also call me Tina. I'm 27 years old. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. Born and raised, grew up in Flatbush. Currently, I live in Canarsie, suburbs of Brooklyn, people say. Yeah. I can talk about many struggles, actually. But one particular struggle that stands out to me the most, and something I did share with a few people, was being abused by someone that I was getting to know. We weren't really in a relationship, but we were trying to build something, I can say. But it wasn't genuine, and I don't really know how I got sucked into it. I feel as though I just fell weak to my emotions and listened to whatever he said to me, and just thought that, if this is what this guy is bringing to the table, and it seems like it's what I want, then let me go for it. And that's how I fell into the trap of being with someone that was completely wrong in all ways, and even thinking that it could work out. And the signs were there, even with us just trying to get to know each other. There would be days where he would get angry and things that he would say to me just didn't make sense, like, oh, no one would ever love you the way that I do. And I'm just like, well, first off, we're not really in a relationship. We're just trying to get to know each other and trying to build something, so this isn't love right now. So hearing that was kind of harsh, because I'm just like, no guy has ever said that to me. And if you think that what you're giving me is love and thinking that there's no one else that can do better than that, then there's something wrong with you, not me. So that was my first warning sign. My second warning sign was when we got into a heated conversation, because he was trying to get to know me, but still dealing with his ex-girlfriend, who is still currently with him at the moment, or maybe even more. So it was like as though I was coming second to him. And I'm just like, well, if you're trying to get to know me, and you have to cut her out of the picture. So there was an incident that happened where we were on a vacation. I can say it, I'm not really afraid to say that. Like, we were on a vacation, and it was amongst my family, not my mom or dad, just my brothers, my cousins, aunts and uncles. And while there, we got into a heated argument, and it was because of his ex, or so to say his actual girlfriend. I noticed that they were still in communication. And I'm just like, okay, well, we're with my family and you're still entertaining another female. And as we were talking, like, he got upset because I went through his phone. And I'm just like, okay, you're getting upset because I went through your phone, but you're not denying the fact that you're still talking to her, and yet you're still trying to be with me. And then one thing led to another, where we had taken a picture together, and I got hold of the picture, and I'm just like, and it was actually a printed picture. And I'm like, I'm gonna rip this picture up because it means nothing to you. And I clearly don't want you to share it with anybody because you have another girl in your life, so you don't need this. So I proceeded to rip up the picture. And he just came and yanked the photograph out of my hand. And all I remember was being pinned to a bed, dragged on the floor, pushed against the wall. And knowing myself, if I feel as though I'm in danger, I'm gonna fight back. So yes, I started fighting back. I started kicking him, throwing my arms, throwing my hands, whatever I can do to like let go of his grip, because he was a bigger man and he was built. One thing led to another, and he punched me in my face. Yeah. I will never forget. That's something I'll never forget. And it was in that moment I realized, okay, Justina, you have to leave this situation. Don't fight back, just run. And that's exactly what I did. I ran out the room and went directly to my cousin in tears, and she's like, what happened? What happened? And I'm like, well, he hit me. And then she went over and she started speaking to him, and then we were still arguing. And I'm just like, how dare you put your hands on me with us just arguing over a picture, knowing that you're in the wrong. And that's where I realized, okay, Justina, this is not something for you. Forget about trying to build a relationship with this guy. You need out.
In the moment, how did you not realize this?
Of course, in that moment, the first thing that came across my mind was, I've never been beat by a man before. My father, growing up in a Caribbean household, people know that our parents beat us. You do something wrong, they beat us. My father has never laid a finger on me to this day, and I'm 27. So seeing that a man who's not related to me, who is barely nothing to me, put his hands on me, definitely left a scar in my life. And still to this day, even though I'm past that situation, I think about it like, okay, well, I have a guard up now. I don't think that I can be as vulnerable as I used to be with people knowing that this happened. It literally makes you think like, okay, well, will another guy do this to me? If I'm so afraid, there was a point in my life when after it happened, I was afraid to talk to guys. I was afraid to even get next to a guy who was bigger built than me. I remember I got into an argument on the bus with a random stranger because he was pushing his way on, and then out of nowhere he said, yeah, that's why you black women love to get beat. And the way that triggered something in me, and I'm like, you don't even know me, let alone any black woman on this bus, to tell us that we love to get beat. Do you know how traumatic that is? And everybody just looked at me like, why are you going off on him? And I'm like, excuse me. It's not okay for any man to say that we love to get beaten. No, we don't. It's not okay. So it still leaves a sting, even to this day, as I try to continuously get over it. But when I'm placed in situations where I feel as though a guy is going to either yell at me or maybe put his hands on me, it brings up that exact moment. Forgiving him, well, it was more so something I had to do on my own. It wasn't necessarily, I had the conversation with him after it all happened, and that was that. And I realized, okay, well, he's not gonna say sorry. And I think for me, it would have been nice to hear, I'm sorry that I hit you, I'm sorry that I actually fought you. But I didn't get that. And it's hard to go, I went a year and a half until I started speaking about it, holding this person in my heart. A year and a half, a year is 365 days plus the other half. So that's a lot of days carrying someone, being angry, being bitter, and looking at yourself and seeing every time you wake up and you're just so sad. And I don't like to put depression and labels on me, but that was a year in my life where I was depressed, where I was crying. I remember we used to have Monday night prayers for Fresh, well, at our church. And I would come to church and I would just cry and cry and cry and be broken. And it wasn't until I knew that God was pushing me to forgive him, because someone told me, like, you're broken and God is just telling you, let it go. There's no need for you to carry it anymore. God forgave you. God forgives him. Why can't you just forgive him? And forgive yourself. And one thing I couldn't do was forgive myself, because I allowed it to get that far. And I was putting blame on myself. And I was just like, well, Justina, if you hadn't, gone on vacation with your family and brought him, none of this would have happened. If you just listened to people telling you, like, don't be with him or don't entertain the fact that he's trying to talk to you, it wouldn't have gotten that far. So learning to forgive myself helped me learn to forgive him. In my life right now, I believe that I'm in a good place, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically. I'm learning to take care of myself and do for me what I can do for myself best. Career-wise, I feel like I'm in a good place, building my knowledge on the healthcare field and what I want to eventually do in life, and just exploring many options, because medicine is such a vast field. So dipping and dabbing in different things is actually beneficial to ultimately seeing where I want to end up as a doctor. Yeah, I think I'm on the right path. Of course, my path isn't perfect, and it's far from perfect. There's always bumps in the road, highs and lows, failures along the way. But I definitely believe that I'm on the right track.
And we're back. What a great show today. It is always a joy and always a privilege to have Dr. Hines with us, who brings to us a plethora of knowledge and background. And it's fun. It's fun to be able to look at the Word of God and share it and deal with some of the topics that we deal with in society of today. When we talk about the Old Testament and even the New Testament, there's a lot of bias against women. There was a lot of violence against women. But I also wanted to add there's some violence against men. But the whole goal today was to say any violence is wrong and is against what God is standing for. We have to love ourselves, and we have to love the people who God has placed in our lives and in our space. Our personal space belongs to us. So we want to make sure that if anyone violates it, we say something and we share something. Great show today, and I pray that the Lord God has blessed you, and I pray that you will be able to just let us know what you're watching. And I hear so much from my seniors. I want to know if anybody else is watching. Just let us know that you're watching, and we truly appreciate you. You can call us here at the church, 302-652-9114. That's again, 302-652-9114. And listen, we'll do all we can to respond to you, but most of all, we just want to know that you're listening and you're watching. Until the next time we get together, may the Lord God bless you real good.